Number three. Number three is the concept that something is a fad. So fads. I'll give two more quick examples. But before I give them, the idea here is, people are telling you that whatever thing that you're looking at, thinking about investing in, that thing is going to go out of fashion. It's temporary, it's probably overhyped in the short term, and it's not going to last. And I remember when Starbucks, my first example, came public around 1990. There was a major perception at the time, a couple of years in, as Starbucks is succeeding as a public company, that coffee houses were a fad. This is not going to last. Look at a history, look backward at the 20th century. Where was there a big coffee house revolution in America? There were certainly local mom and pop coffee shops, always have been, and there have been some mom and pop coffee brands, or sometimes larger corporate ones like, Sanka, some mediocrity before Starbucks showed up. The perception that Starbucks, by charging more, could create a revolution that would proliferate globally was very much not on the market's mind back in the early 1990s. And I think Howard Schultz, one of those visionary leaders, we talk a lot about, Howard Schultz has proven them wrong. And today, Starbucks, last I looked, the market cap is about $80 billion. That was a huge dark cloud. I did not see through that dark cloud back in the early 1990s. I didn't know then what I know today about investing. So this is not one where I can talk about how we had it back then. I am happy to say we did first recommend Starbucks in 1998, and it's done very well since. So we've had it a long time. But the idea that Starbucks was a fad. Here's another fad. Do you remember this? And this did lead to one of our better investments, Motley Fool Stock Advisor. And that's the idea right after Spider-Man 1 came out and succeeded as a movie, and they're talking about the Spider-Man 2 sequel. The idea was that Marvel was riding a short-term fad where all of a sudden superhero movies were hot, but they weren't going to stay hot. And some people would point back to some kind of a failed Batman franchise or Superman kind of giving back out in the 70s or 80s as reasons that superhero movies wouldn't really take off. I don't think I have to argue for superhero movies anywhere today. Everything from the incredible Marvel's Avengers series right through to the most recent Deadpool, which I think was number one at the box office over last weekend coming out from Fox. It's very clear that superhero movies have not been a fad. In fact, they have been one of the safest bets that you could make about cinematic success. And sometimes you hear the complaints today that the only movies that seem to really deserve the scale of a movie theater or consistently make money are these kinds of movies. So Marvel has been a tremendous investment. Of course, it did get bought by Disney, and we've just held shares all the way through. But that was so that's the fads dark cloud, the idea that something is a fad. Even I remember when my kids were into Pokemon early on, people were saying Pokemon was a fad, and yet today I see just as much Pokemon gear 20 plus years later as when it was supposedly a fad that was going to run out. So this is, I would say, a frequent misperception, and if you watch carefully and invest well, you'll make quite a lot of money by seeing through this dark cloud.
As always, people on this program may have interest in the stocks they talk about, and the Motley Fool may have formal recommendations for or against. So don't buy or sell stocks based solely on what you hear. Learn more about rule breaker investing at rbi.fool.com.